Welcome back everybody to the Wandering Samurai Study, in which we review and analyze every single act told in Rurouni Kenshin, and today's act is Act 23, The Martial Artist and the Spy. That's right everybody, it's time for a new manga cover because we finally finished the first 3 volumes of Rurouni Kenshin. Yay! Good for us. Thanks everybody who's joined us on this journey, and thank you everybody who's supporting from Act 1. So this title right here is pretty interesting if you kind of think about it, because on its face, the martial artist and the spy, it's all Hanya, it's only Hanya, but it's kind of written in a way where it's supposed to make you think that it's possibly talking about Kenshin and Hanya, Hanya being the spy and Kenshin being a martial artist, but Kenshin's not a martial artist, he's a swordsman, and Hanya is. Right from the first couple pages, we see that Hanya is mentioned to be a martial artist. But let's get into the chapter summary and we'll talk about the highlights. Kenshin and Hanya are face to face, ready to fight. Kenshin asks if he's willing to just let them pass through it, as a fight to the death is unnecessary. However, Hanya declines by saying that the Okashira's orders are absolute. The two begin their duel, and Kenshin is knocked back by Hanya's ability to extend the length of his arms. In order to counter this, Kenshin takes a defensive stance that really served as a measuring technique for Kenshin to see if Hanya's arms really do grow. With Kenshin's measuring technique, he successfully countered another strike from Hanya, and saw that the stripes around Hanya's arms are an optical illusion to confuse his opponents. Kenshin commends Hanya's arms and his mask as a good choice for a fighter's outfit to make it difficult for his opponents to read him. Hanya concludes the chapter by saying that his mask is actually to hide his true face. First things first, as this is very much in line with everything else that we've kind of discussed throughout the series, that Hanya's arms, which is probably the most striking thing about him whenever I think about Hanya besides his face, it's his arms. It's another optical illusion thrown into the story, thrown into the techniques of these fighters as a way of keeping it in realism. Hanya tried to kind of get in Kenshin's head by telling him that he's been under Kenshin's spell from the moment that he first laid eyes on him back at the dojo when Hitokiri attacked. And that turned out to not be the case because there is no spell, it's just an optical illusion, which is fascinating, including the way that Kenshin actually saw through the spell, the technique that Kenshin used to counter Hanya's spell. Great stuff, you know. But again, it's just another example of how these things are set up. Really, we have yet to actually see some type of magic. But on the note of Hanya, Kenshin says something about Hanya's outfit. It seems very utilitarian in his choices for what makes up his costume, because we see that there are metal gauntlets beneath his gloves. When he does the strike, there's supposed to be like a huge sound of metal clashing in the beginning of the chapter, and that's how Sanosuke figures it out. But then also the arms serve as a way of creating the illusion that his arms can actually extend longer than what they actually are, which turned out to not be real. But the optics of fighting, they are present, which go into his fighting abilities, I guess. And then finally, his mask, as Kenshin being part of the Hiten Mitsurugi, and I guess fighters in general, they use the ability to read their opponents to kind of get the better of them. Throughout the series, throughout the anime, we constantly see or hear Kenshin talking about being able to read his opponents. We see this a lot during the Kyoto arc with Kenshin versus Sojiro, Kenshin versus Shishio. Once Shishio sees somebody's move, it can't be used against him anymore. It's because he's already witnessed it, he's already experienced it, and he can read it and see how to counteract it as a fighter. But Hanya's mask is a great way of hiding his facial expressions from giving away his moves during battle. But Hanya, counters this by saying that it actually hides his true face, and we don't actually get to see his face in this chapter, so we'll go ahead and save that for chapter 24. But yeah, his costume his outfit is pretty utilitarian. I think that he has put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into what makes his outfit when fighting. Also though, one thing that I've noticed here from observing his outfit, since it's been pointed out, I think that Hanya is the only one that has the makeup or the aesthetic that makes up the Oniwaban uniform as we see it in the Kyoto branch of the Oniwaban. It might be a little bit tweaked out, a little bit different, but I think it's generally the same. It's definitely closer to anything that the other members have. So, cool. Oh, also, I think that this is just kind of a fun thing to point out. But if you notice, when Sanosuke is talking about the gauntlets, the metal gauntlets, you see that Yahiko is sitting on top of Sanosuke's shoulders. This is actually a continuation from the end of the previous chapter. During the last page or so, we actually see Yahiko jump on top of Sanosuke's shoulders during a gag moment, and it was just continued out from the end of that chapter and into this one, which was really cool. I just like that little bit of continuation flowing from one chapter to the next. It's one of those things that easily, like, Yahiko could have been drawn back on standing on the floor, and it wouldn't have bothered anybody, I don't think. But hey, it's just those little details. And continue on about Sanosuke, Yahiko, and this whole chapter with Hanya. When Kenshin takes his defensive stance, Sanosuke actually asks Yahiko what the stance is, as he's somebody who's studying swordsmanship, and Yahiko doesn't have a whole lot of insight to it. He just says he doesn't know, but he definitely knows that it isn't one of the other stances that he does know about. And this is because the stance that Yahiko is familiar with, apparently the stance is that the sword would be lower than the one that Kenshin currently has, where his arms are a little bit more up, and apparently, like, it's a little bit lower. So I mean, I couldn't technically replicate it since I haven't actually seen it, but cool stuff. I just enjoy this little detail of Yahiko being included. Anything that has Yahiko included, I think it's great, because he is supposed to be the shonen of the story. Apparently, the Kenshin's stance, his sword stance, made Hanya lose his respect for Kenshin, which is just an interesting note, that Hanya apparently had respect for Kenshin up until this point, and I guess this is just because he is the Hitokiri Battosai. He probably just expected more, and so when Kenshin took this defensive stance that is usually very difficult to turn into an offensive stance, it made him lose respect, in the sense that he thought that Kenshin was cowering away after just one bout with him, a quick exchange where Hanya, first, threw some punches and Kenshin got hit, and then immediately afterwards Kenshin is taking this defensive stance. It was like, well, he was expecting more. And that's just another one of those things, though, where you see that Kenshin is about to pull something out of his pocket that is supposed to shock not only the villain but all of us. If you pick up on these cues, though, you kind of see them coming. It's just one of those things where Hanya felt like he's superior to Kenshin after this moment, and then Kenshin does something cool to remind him and everybody else that he is the former Hitokiri Battosai. There's a reason that he is a man of legend. Oh, and I guess the final thing that I want to finish off on is saying that the Oshikira's commands are absolute. This is something that Hanya says when Kenshin asks him if he can just let them pass through, as a bout to the death is unnecessary. which I really like that. I feel like that line is very Kenshin. I feel like if anybody were to say that, it would definitely be Kenshin. But the Oshikira's words are absolute. It shows his loyalty to Aoshi, which will be important moving forward from the rest of this conflict. And that is Act 23. The martial artist and the spy. If you like this video and you want to see more, then consider subscribing to the channel and check out some of the previous videos that I have, whether on this arc or any of the other ones that followed before this. There's a whole lot of videos to watch on Kenshin now, as there are about 23-ish, and also other side videos that I have made on Kenshin. Let me know what you guys think. Comment down below, give this video a like, and we will continue to wander into Act 24. Bye, cha.